In our ongoing series of meeting interesting people who add value and color to our lives, I'd like to introduce you to somebody you may have heard of, and maybe you haven't, but you're going to love what it is that he and his partner do. Alex van den Heever, welcome to another chat with me. Nice and simple.
Thank you very much, Stuart. It's an honor to be interviewed by you. Thank you.
So you have spent your life, once you realized what you wanted to do, trekking in the bush, and you didn't do it on your own. You got to meet a brother from another mother. And what's happened since then has been quite remarkable. Give us the potted version of that first.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I started as a game ranger at Londolozi Game Reserve in 1995, just short of 30 years ago. And when I arrived there, I was paired with a Shangaan man, a tall, charismatic Shangaan man by the name of Renia Sentlongo. He was born in what is today the Kruger National Park. And interestingly, he's one of the last people alive today to be raised on the original traditions of a Shangaan hunter-gatherer. And the two of us were put together as ranger and tracker. And arriving as a young whitey, know-it-all, I'd been through the training. I thought I was ready to take on the job. And it was very quick. It didn't take long for me to realize that actually Ren was going to keep me alive, and he was in total control. And in many ways, he was able to create an environment where we could deliver this world-class safari to people all around the world. And what has ensued has been a 3-decade-long journey, the two of us, that has profoundly changed both of our lives. And tracking, yes, as you alluded to, has been central to that. He is one of the last great trackers in Africa, and he taught me to track, and I learned his language. And the two of us, have tracked all around the world, and in so doing, have made tracking a part of our lives, and we want to share it with people from all walks of life, because we believe that there's huge value in this ancient African art form that started here maybe 20,000 years ago. We can call it our own. It started in Africa, but it has relevance, and it has great lessons, and it is incredibly powerful metaphor for everybody.
And it's not just like we get off the tracker vehicle and we follow spoor in the ground. I mean, you've taken it to a whole new level, but you mentioned that you've done it around the world. Just giving us 3 examples of non-African tracking that you and Renais have done together.
Well, Stuart, our first trip abroad was to the North American Yellowstone National Park, where we tracked grizzlies and wolves. And it was quite funny. We arrived there to teach American trackers how to track their own animals. And for whatever reason, we were delayed. I think it was weather and so on. And we arrived the same day our students arrived. And we wanted to get there a bit earlier to get acclimatized. But that was not, that just didn't happen. And the first time I ever saw a bear's track was when one of our students showed me that that's a bear's track. And the first day went pretty badly, but the second day went a bit better. And we've written the story in our book, Changing a Leopard Spot. So that was one. We've also tracked jaguars in the Amazon, cougars in Chile, in the Patagonia. And we even went to Australia to track kangaroos with local indigenous Aboriginal trackers there, with a group of an executive team actually from one of the banks in Australia. So we love tracking, and we love to test our skills in foreign environments. But what it has shown us is that, like in many things, the 80-20 rule applies. 80% of it are the generic principles of tracking, and 20% is the local knowledge you are required. But that's where it makes the difference here.
Now, what really appeals to me, and one of our clients has booked you for an event, and what really appealed when we were going through the demonstration to him, so that he could better understand why this would be relevant in the business world, was how the parallels that you drew between being in a team where you've got to take disparate thinking and beliefs and understandings and values and objectives and focus them on the goal. In this case, finding the animal. The animal, I guess, is the client, or satisfying the client, or delivering what their expectations are. So talk me through, I'm your client, talk me through what it is that I think is just so remarkably unique. Unique is unique, but this is remarkably unique.
So that's an interesting question. So there are two layers with which to answer that question. The one is that the environment in which animal trackers work. Now we're talking vast, wild, wordless areas like the Kruger National Park. These areas are wordless. There are no signposts. There are no consultants to talk to. The trackers are forced to start understanding what the signs are, recognize them, and start to make interpretations about what activity is going on around them. Everything around you is beyond your influence. And I think that's very similar to the political and economical situation we're in currently, where so much is beyond our influence right now, especially with all the changes that are happening. It seems to be, as we go through time, that change becomes more prominent. And I can tell you that trackers deal with change. They see change as naturally part of the environment. They don't get derailed by it, and they expect it to happen. And they have a mindset that is very adaptable. And they, in fact, like change, and they make use of change to learn, to go back and see where they went wrong. And so environmentally, the physical environment has molded these people into a mindset that they have developed to be able to handle all this uncertainty. So that's the landscape, the physical landscape. But the trackers themselves, we'll get into that a bit later if you don't mind, but the trackers themselves have an interesting collection of mindsets that makes up their ability to be able to handle all this uncertainty. And we can get into that as well, Stuart.
You're the fundi. Take me through it.
Well, tracking requires two modes of thinking. The one is a very rational, analytical, detail-oriented type of thinking. The tracker must be able to tell you that that is a lion track and not a leopard's track or a hyena's track. He must, or she must be able to tell you how fresh it is, and that you're getting into the granular detail of an animal's sign. But very quickly, the tracker must be able to move seamlessly into a much more diffuse mode of thinking, a bigger picture, holistic, more intuitive modes of thinking. And that is to see the detail you have just seen in the larger context of the environment. So a lion track is a lion track, and you can extract a lot of detail from that. But what does it mean in the broader context of the landscape? Where is it going? What's its motive? What's its intention? Why is it going? How is the landscape influencing its movement? And so what we do is we give people scenarios through video, through actual video of when we were tracking, problems, decisions that they must make, that we had to make in the bush. And we ask them to make these decisions with information that is unclear. And we've done that purposely because in the bush, information is never perfect. And so we put the audience, the participants, into exactly the same kind of a situation that we were in, with the exact limited amount of information. And we ask them to make a decision. But before we do that, we go into how do trackers make decisions? And we go into the mindset of the tracker. And really, Stuart, there is no real right or wrong decision, just except each one has a consequence. And we have filmed the consequence of those decisions. And so the participants not only get to make the decision, they get to view the outcome of their decision, which makes it really exciting.
That's wonderful. I mean, just think about, it's a new client. There's only so much you can find out about them. There's only so much that they're going to tell you. So now, hit your customer, your client, whoever it is, start the process with us. And then...
Yes, exactly. If you give me a minute, I will share my screen to show you. So the program, Stuart, is called Tracking Success. It's a virtual teaming adventure. Said another way, it's an interactive wildlife documentary that is fun, but has serious lessons. The objective of this program is to use the ancient art form of animal tracking to solve or to help people solve modern business problems. And it's called Tracking Success. I've been through why tracking already. You know, what is tracking? This is what we will do in the beginning. We'll explain what tracking is currently, what trackers do, where they come from, how they add value in the conservation industry, both in terms of ecotourism as well as protecting rhino. We go into the fact that the trackers are on the front line of protecting our rhino. We know that we're in a rhino poaching crisis, and Tracker Academy is an NGO that Renius and I set up 15 years ago together with Gaynor Rupert, which is training trackers to specifically go and protect rhino. We had incredible success. But so that's why tracking is relevant for conservation. I then move the conversation to why tracking is relevant for you and for the business leader and for teams. And that goes to a little bit about what I was saying around the environments are uncertain. And in order to deal with these uncertain environments, we need to adopt what we think is the master trackers mentality. And that's what this program is about. So we get into wire tracking. I go then into a little bit of background of how we created this virtual teaming experience. We basically went in the bush and we tracked lion, leopard, and rhino. We got a film crew to follow us. The guy on the right is a friend of mine and happens to be one of the lead cameramen for Survivor USA. So we had an incredible team. And they filmed us going out every single day, making decisions, dealing with difficult and often challenging circumstances. And then back in the edit suite, we got all the footage together and we created a narrative, a single story from all the events that we had. So the events are true, they're authentic, the decisions happened, the encounters definitely happened. But then what we do is we string it all together to create a story that becomes your story. And you decide how that story unfolds. And we shot this during COVID. So there was no one else in the park and we had carte blanche to do what we liked within reason. So how we now deliver this program, Stuart, is, as I said, we've cut it up into small little, no longer than 2-minute long videos or film clips, which sets up a scene and delivers a scenario or a problem. The participants are then in groups of anything between 2 and 6 or 10, depending how big the audience is. They have a discussion at their table about what they would like to do based on the sketchy information and the film that they've just seen. And then they decide on an option 1 or option 2. So that's how it works. And I don't know if you ever read any of those choose your own adventure books. It's a little bit like that. It's a branching narrative and you go where your decisions take you. And there's some interesting outcomes, there's some dangerous outcomes, there's some frightening outcomes, and there's some, so it's across the spectrum.
Why don't you give us an example?
Well, one of the key decisions we ask people to make is, and this is what happened to us. We were tracking a rhino, and we got intelligence to say that there were poachers on the reserve, and we were tracking a rhino cow with its calf that had not been seen. The management in the park asked us to go and establish whether that baby rhino was okay or not. And now we were confronted with, oh, well, and we were close to finding that we were on the tracks of the mother. And then we get this information that there are poachers on the land. Now we've got to decide, do we break from tracking that rhino and the calf and establish if she's okay? And go and follow these poachers and go but there's some risk involved in following poachers because poachers are armed and they will shoot easily. Or do we stay on the baby rhino's tracks and try and establish her status? So now this is the decision, and you've got to decide now: do you want to go and track poachers, the poachers may be over after that same calf, or maybe after another that's those same rhino, or after elephant. We didn't know, and now we had to make that decision. And so that would be an example. So the one, and I'm not going to tell you what happens because that'll ruin it, but that is a type of another decision, Stuart, we had to take was we were on a fresh rhino trail, and then we get confronted with very, very, very fresh tracks of a big male lion, which has incredible tourism value, a male lion. And again, some of the local tourists had not seen lion in a long time. So there was pressure on us to switch and go and track the lion. And that adds tension because the original mission was to go and find that rhino mother and its calf. Now there's another opportunity. It's a new opportunity. It's fresh. And so I find there's often a lot of tension at the tables. What do we do? There's a lion here. Lion's high value. But that's our mission is to find the calf. But we may learn something if we go after the lion. So that's an example of two decisions. But overlaid here in the decision-making process, Stuart, is our mission. What are we actually doing? Every time a tracker goes in the bush, they aim to do three things. One, we're preserving Africa's wildlife. Two, all the masters will go with young people, mentees, protégés, young people who they're developing to become the next generation of expert trackers. And then the third thing is that many trackers operating in the greater Kruger National Park are serving the ecotourism industry. So we ask, said another way, that mission has an environmental component, a social component, and an economic one. And we ask the participants to make their decision based on balancing out these three components of the mission. Some tables will upweight the environmental side of it and downweight the economic, and vice versa. The point is that the mission is there, again, to create complexity. It also generates rich conversation. And it's fantastic for the tables to understand how are they going to make decisions. Are we going to always look at the economic when we make a decision? Or are we going to look at the social? Or in fact, do we want to care for the environment? And there's no right or wrong here. It just is. And it depends on where the organization is going and what it cares most about for its long-term sustainability.
Is it possible for them to have a mix of those three?
Yes, and there are some decisions that satisfy more than one. It's not always binary.
Fantastic. Yeah. Let's get going on the track. Let's get going on the track.
Okay, so what we always say is that the best lion trackers, for example, know the most about lions. And so the organization, what is the organization tracking? From my experience, less than 5 out of 10 people know what the organization is tracking. And then those who do know what the organization is tracking, they may know it theoretically, but they haven't gotten internalized nor theoretical understanding of what it is that the organization is going after. Is there absolute clarity on what the organization is trying to achieve? The lion tracker knows he's going after lion. He knows the risks involved, and he knows a lot about how lions behave. And that's what gives him power. He has absolute clarity. And so we talk about this for this particular little example that I'm sharing with you, Stuart. We're going to go track lions. And so we tell you about lions. What's their eyesight like? What's their camouflage? What their tracks look like? Their signs, their droppings, how they react to people on foot, a little bit about their behavior. And so that we give the audience an understanding of what that which they're going to be looking for. What is it that they need to know that's going to help them make good decisions? So that's the first. And then often right here, we will pause and we'll ask the tables to write down what they are tracking. And it's very interesting to see what comes out of that. And we've got to keep a bit of structure going because it can get out of control because Often what the CEO is tracking and what one of the other members of the executive team may be two different things. And often we find a non-alignment. And that often will set up an opportunity for another day or another intervention where we all agree on what we are tracking. But this is just how the power of this tracking metaphor comes to play. Okay, let me play you a video here now to show you. Enough speaking. Let's get our tracking boots on and go tracking. Here we go. Let me know if you can see and hear clearly enough, Stuart.
Okay. Lovely.
In the bush, getting up early has its rewards as lions will often roar just before sunrise. The lion is close and there's no time to lose.
This is the lioness that we were heard calling for when we were in the camp. This is her tracks right here, fresh tracks.
The tracks are fresh and the lioness is on the move. They like to walk along game paths or roads when they're moving quickly.
We're busy following this lioness's tracks. We've just, however, had the most surprising thing happen to us. A hyena came out of the bush at us.
It's rare for any predator to approach a group of humans on foot. Renia suspects that it may also be tracking the lioness in the hope of finding an easy meal.
So we have a choice to make. Do we follow that hyena, because it may well be also tracking this lioness, and get there quicker? Or do we continue working this lioness's tracks?
Here's the decision we need to make. Do we follow that hyena? It's a speculative decision. We know that hyenas are exceptional trackers in their own right, probably the greatest trackers in the animal kingdom. Great sense of smell. They're just such smart animals. It may be that if we follow that hyena, it'll give us a shortcut. It'll give us some return on energy to get to those lions quicker, because the hyenas might be going towards the lions because the lions may have made a kill or they were on the prowl. We know that hyenas often follow lions. Or do we make a more literal decision and continue following those tracks, systematically following footprint for footprint? It's more tangible evidence, but we don't know how far those lions have gone, and tracking takes a while. Those lions could have moved a huge distance. And so now we ask the audience in their groups to have a conversation. We give the pros and cons of each decision, and we now hand it to them to now make a decision. So I don't know if you'd like to make a decision here.
Okay. I'm probably more of a risk taker, and I would say let's follow the hyena. If I was less, and oh, by the way, I'm Libran, so decisions are not easy. Or do we keep following the lion? Let's follow the hyena.
Okay. So now what we'll do is we've now filmed both outcomes, both eventualities. And so let's play you what happened when we went to go and follow the hyena.
This is the best tracker in the animal kingdom, hyena.
Its sense of smell, hearing, and sight is acutely developed. The team is upbeat. They have used this tactic before to close the gap on lion.
What happened here, there's the old bones. The old bones.
The team is now tracking the hyena and lion. They are making good progress. Up ahead, they hear a baboon alarm call.
We've also got a tree squirrel alarm just here. You must come watch your ticket. You may be very close by. How beautiful is this? Being on foot with wild lions. Eh? So we don't bash about the bush, impacting on animals and disturbing them in their natural habitat. Our idea is to find them and move away and leave them in a peaceful state where they haven't run from us, nor have they shown us any aggression. The best trackers in the world are able to achieve that consistently. And the more times we connect on foot with lions or with leopards, the more relaxed they become. They trust that we're not going to threaten them. We're not going to shoot them. We're not going to try and steal their meat or hurt their cubs or anything. Slowly, over many years of refined, tenacious tracking, have now started to trust humans on foot. And this is very special, and there are very few places left in Africa where you have this type of relationship. This is the pinnacle of a genuine relationship between humans and animals. Okay, well done. Well done, Stuart. That was a good decision. Would you like to see, however, what
I'd
would
love
happen?
to see if we decided just to follow the lion's tracks.
Okay, here we go.
The lioness is still following the road and she is moving at pace. Renias uses this as a real-time teaching moment to explain to Sam what the lioness is up to.
This lioness is walking fast. She may be far away.
When following at speed to close the gap, the tracker often loses the trail. This is a very natural part of the process. A good tracker has the skill and experience to get back on track and uses all the available signs to do so.
We lost the tracks briefly, but then Renier saw the direction from where the impala had been running, and that helped us get back onto the trail. Now an impala is alarmed. There's definitely something going on here.
The impala are on the other side of the river, and a normally dry riverbed is now full of hidden dangers. The team need to decide whether they cross the river or head back to the Land Rover.
So, Stuart, you will see that decision led to another one, which was, do we cross the river? And there's some dangers to doing that and get onto the other bank, which is pretty close by where we saw the impala alarming, or do we return to the vehicle and drive all the way around? So I hope you get a sense of the sort of branching narrative situation that is evolving here. And because what we can also do, and we do this regularly, we find a lot of clients want this, is to gamify. And I say gamify, and that's not really the right term, but basically the environment in which these trackers operate is harsh. And the concept of return on energy is really important. And so we can add return on energy points to each outcome. And so tables can gain return on energy points based on the decisions they made. And at the end of the day, there can be a winning table or a winning team if a client would like to do that.
I think the competition element is fantastic, and who doesn't like a little bit of competition? But I think the great takeaway from this is that you start to understand your team and your teams better as they do with you and your team. So suddenly, and you'll probably find, when they're sitting in a boardroom or sitting at a sales conference and talking about the goals, that they're going to say, but are we talking hyena or lion? And you'll probably find that continues in the company because it makes them recall why they made the decisions or what had to go into the decision-making process. Am I right?
Quite right. You're asking people to have a conversation about something they've never had a conversation about before, most likely. And so, and from that, you get a lot of value, right from the CEO to the lowest ranking person in the organization. It's flattened, and it's always interesting to get why people made a certain decision. We always ask members of the team to tell us why you chose to cross the river. Why did you go? What was the rationale behind that? And that's when you learn about people. And they are not talking about a work decision. They're talking about a life decision here. They've adopted the tracker's mindset, and it's very revealing.
Alex, I think this has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing this with us. We're going to share it further. I just think it is so different. Who doesn't love Africa? And how much do we really know about our continent? How much do we know about the other side, the wild side of life? And I think that you and Renas, we've got such an insight into your world. And thanks so much for sharing that with us.
I'd love to just share with you a little bit on the tracker's mindset, if you don't mind.
Please.
Yeah. But just to take what you said is you've reminded me of something. The corporate environment is wild. It's just as wild as being out in the middle of the Kruger National Park for different reasons. But most people that operate in these organizations were trained in the zoo. And so we need to get them out of the zoo and into the wild and get them to understand that the rules are not according to the zoo. And then get people who operate in wild environments to tell us how they operate and what mindsets. And by the way, this image here is Renia Simklongo. He's the man I've spent 30 years with. And he epitomizes the tracker's mindset. Now, I just wanted to show you quickly, we have a thing called, it's a model. It's called the tracking success pathway. Every time you track an animal, these are the 5 interrelated activities that will unfold, or most likely unfold, during the process of tracking. And they're the same, and you can apply these same activities or elements to tracking anything, whether a customer, a project, or a certain level of profit. The first thing is you got to find the track. You can't, if you make a mistake and you go after the wrong thing, if we want to go out and track lions and you start tracking a hyena, you're never going to find that lion. So you got to know what a fresh lion track looks like. And that requires technical competence, and it requires a mindset of discernment. The next, once you assume you found the track now, you start to follow. This is like an investigator following a trail of evidence. This requires a curious mindset. This is constantly asking questions, not being biased in saying, I know where this animal is going to go. And the following element usually takes up the bulk of the tracking process. At some point, we want to leapfrog ahead. Trackers can never outwalk or outpace a lion. They want to close the gap. They want to realize some return on their energy invested. And to close the gap, they ask 3 questions. They ask, what are the details of the track telling me? What's the animal's intention? And how is the landscape I'm operating in influencing that animal's movement? And that requires practical imagination. So an imaginative mindset here in getting ahead, to think holistically, get in the helicopter and start to work out what's going on here. What's the picture? What's the activity around me? And how is it changing? And can I create a hypothesis of what this animal is doing and how I may find it? When you close the gap, there's a high chance of one losing track. And look, we all lose track in life. But the master trackers are not concerned about, they understand that losing track is an inevitable part of the tracking process. and they're adaptable. They will confront the brutal facts. They're bold and courageous enough to say, I am off track. And they have two simple ways of dealing with a lost track. But the point is that they have an adaptive mindset that can deal with losing track and not get down and give up. Then the last one is, if you do these four things, you find the track, follow, you close the gap, you deal well with the lost track, you get back on track, you'll have an encounter with the animal or the thing you're tracking. And that this requires a mindset of reverence. In fact, the reverence as a mindset within the tracker's overall approach is the one thing that makes the rest work. We reverence for the animal. Trackers with reverence usually have less bad encounters with the animals they track. They're better socially. And I just see often when I work with teams, the often lack of reverence, the reverence for our fellow colleagues, for the work we're doing, for our work environment. And so if you put discernment, curiosity, adaptability, and imagination and reverence together, you get the epitome of the master tracker's mindset. And we believe there's a lot here that can be learned and a lot of value that can be offered to corporate South Africa.
I love it. I think so many of our clients will love it. There's, I don't know who doesn't stand to benefit from the broader thinking and the different approach. I think it's what you and Renéas have done together. It's superb. Thanks for doing it for Africa. Thanks for doing it for South Africa. And we look forward to working with you lots in the future.
It's a pleasure. Thank you,